Whew, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back into Justin wasn't ready there. I had to catch him off guard. Welcome back into another episode of the Celtics Talk Weekly podcast. I am your host, Robby. Join with me are my two great co-hosts, Ian Angelo and Justin Lowe. You guys know the crew. It has been a while, guys. Definitely for the course over of the summer, and maybe even a little bit more into the regular season. It feels like since we've been able to put out a podcast, but we are back. We are back every Wednesday at noon. Check back into the Celtics Talk Weekly account because we're going to be having podcasts presented to you guys weekly. We're very excited. We have a lot in store for you guys this season. However, before we get started, guys, follow us on all of our social medias. Everything will be in the link down below in the description. You guys know the drill is also on your screen. You can see there our Instagram, our X, and our X, I hate saying that, and our TikTok, and then also our personals will be in the description. But guys, before we get started, how's it been? How was the off season treating you guys being champs? You know what I'm saying? How does it feel?
It's different. I mean, every year we were doing these off-season podcasts, wondering like, is this the year? Is this the year they finally win it?
I know,
and now they have. It's a good experience. I can't lie. It's a great experience.
It is a great experience. I think. I don't know. This off season, it feels pretty complete. I've been able to kind of take a step back and just kind of live life and enjoy it. I think going to the parade was like the coolest. It was just everything and more. Everybody cooperated really good. There were little to no issues at the parade as well. And I mean, there was almost 2 million people there. It was absolutely unreal. The moment really sunk in. I really tried to enjoy every moment. And I was walking down the street and you look up and the streets are covered in green confetti. Every person in the crowd is wearing a Celtics jersey, and you got Jason Tatum, you got Sam Hauser smashing and throwing up beers. I mean, it was just everything you could have dreamt of and more. And it was cool because I went with my buddy Chris, and when the parade ended, Chris and I were at the TD Garden, and we accidentally walking back to the car ended up at the duck boats, and nobody was there yet. They were all starting to get off the duck boats. Brad Stevens was right there. And, Chris and I went over and we were, thanking Brad Stevens, and we were talking. I was telling him to go win one in Vegas, and he laughed. He goes, if you guys party like this, if we win it in Vegas, that'd be hilarious. But even Brad Stevens, word for word, said, thank you guys so much for this. This is everything we could have ever imagined. I mean, the atmosphere was unbelievable. And it was one hell of a way to cap off a historic season for the Celtics. I mean, guys, they are one of the great, and this isn't just saying this because we're Celtics fans. They are going to be one of the greatest teams in NBA history when it's all said and done. So just an absolute amazing offseason. If you're a Celtics fan.
It was amazing. It was amazing. The parade, Game 5, the streets. I mean, the whole thing it lived up to everything that we hyped it up to be as Celtics fans. It was everything and more we could have imagined. But guys, now the task is a little bit different coming into this next season, because now, like Ian said, question is not can the Celtics get over the hump? It's who's going to take down the Celtics? Who's going to dethrone these guys? Can they go back to back, right? And I'm going to tell you what, I like that narrative a little bit better than the other narrative, right? I like this. This is a narrative I can get behind. And so I think it's going to be interesting from a coverage perspective too. Our lens have completely changed now. I was talking to my dad literally just last night of how every game isn't going to be in such a vacuum now. How, if you're the head coach, Joe Mazzulla, you can try things and not be criticized for it failing or it losing. So it really is going to be a super fun year, especially with everything that transpired this offseason with the Jays. You're looking at them now. They got a little bit of a target on their back, and you don't know how they're going to respond. And you see Jaylen Brown coming out saying, "I'm coming for blood," and it's just like it's more fuel to the fire, and it's a very exciting time. However, let's get into this thing, right? Let's just hop right in. Let's tear the Band-Aid, because just the other night, guys, we got some pretty unexpected signing news coming out of the Boston Celtics front office, obviously signing Lonnie Walker to an E10 training camp deal. Now, the specifics of this deal kind of makes it so that Lonnie Walker is kind of trying out for the Boston Celtics. He is not rostered in that 15th and final spot. He will have to come into camp and earn his spot, guys. An interesting kind of deal for the caliber of player that Lonnie Walker is. Now, before the trade deadline transpired, you can go back and there's many tapes of us kind of all signs pointed to we wanted Lonnie Walker. We kept saying it.
Right.
Excuse me, go get Lonnie Walker, go get Lonnie Walker. Now, guys, obviously we can't really talk about the impacts Lonnie Walker will make, but we can talk about the impacts he can and could make. So with Lonnie Walker coming up this year, you know, I guess the general question is will Lonnie Walker make this roster?
Personally, I would be shocked if he didn't. However, with the way that they're talking about it, it wouldn't be shocking if he didn't. Personally, I'm very high on Lonnie Walker. I've always been high on Lonnie Walker ever since he's been with the Spurs. So it would be awesome to see him in Boston. Like, he's not going to have, six man of the year type role for the Celtics, but he'll be a guy that'll come off the bench. He'll provide a spark plug off the bench, kind of like what you would have a guy like O'Shea Brissett do. So obviously it would be cool if he did make the team. It would be kind of surprising if he didn't make it and then ended up in Maine because I don't see Lonnie Walker as a Maine Celtic. But if it does happen, then hopefully he can make the big club later.
It's funny because when you talk about Lonnie Walker, and we've been, essentially talking about wanting him for the past few years, it's incredible because you look at Lonnie Walker's age and he's 25 years old. Like it feels like he's been around for, I'm not saying he's this old veteran, but it feels like he's been around the league for a little bit longer than he actually has been in the league. So this is definitely a player that the Celtics can take a look at. The caliber of play is there. I mean, he averaged nearly 10 points a game on 42% shooting from the field, nearly 40% from deep last year, 38%. To kind of be exact, but is the exact type of player the Celtics could use off the bench. Obviously losing O'Shea Brissett this year, where O'Shea Brissett, anytime his number was called, he was terrific. There were nights where he played 15 minutes a game. There were nights where he didn't even suit up. So that's going to be the role that we're going to have to be accustomed to if Lonnie Walker does eventually sign a guaranteed deal with this team. And that's something that Lonnie Walker also has to kind of be willing to accept. I think he knows what he's walking into here. He's walking into a team coming off a championship, a team that is already deep without him. And I think he's up for that challenge of being able to, if it means that I can compete and I can win and I could be on a championship level team. I think Lonnie Walker will 100% make that sacrifice and be on this roster and accept any role that he's given. There's going to be nights where Lonnie Walker could play, like I said, 15 minutes a game. And there's going to be nights where matchups aren't in our favor and he's not going to play at all. So I do think Lonnie Walker has the capability of making this roster. The question is, though, how much would we really see from Lonnie Walker, even if he does make the opening night roster? I really do like this signing, though. We're going to get to see 5 preseason games worth of him, as well as training camp footage of him. So we'll really get to see how he slots in. I will tell you that this is a terrific pickup for Brad Stevens. I know it's only an Exhibit 10 deal, but this is a guy that was lingering in free agency. Nobody picked him up. I'm very shocked that nobody had picked him up. He was also shocked that nobody picked him up. You see some quotes talking about, people doubting him and he hasn't even hit his prime yet. And, he's only 25 years old. So really like how Brad Stevens went in and dug deep and grabbed Lonnie Walker. And we'll get to watch training camp and see if he can make the team.
Right. And I feel like, and this kind of goes into my next question. I think the make or break thing with Lonnie Walker, and I really think with the front office should be, are you going to be able to go out and fill that last roster spot with a player as good as Lonnie Walker? Right. Is there going to be a player, especially with the financial restrictions that are held on the Boston Celtics, even if a player gets waived at, towards the deadline, if they're making over that MLE, there's no way the Celtics can even touch them on a minimum deal. So I think that is the first question, right? Is there a player out there that, is better than Lonnie Walker that's coming up? The second one, in my opinion, is, arguably, definitely offensively, Lonnie Walker's the most talented guy on the Celtics bench. In terms of scoring, getting a bucket, no one can do it better and at as high of a level as Lonnie Walker can off the bench. So I do think there's a role for him that he can carve out with this team. So I would love to see him there. I don't think there is a player on the market that is as good as Lonnie Walker the Celtics can afford and reasonably go get. So that kind of plays into my next question for you guys. Is there anyone out there on the market right now, or you could predict maybe be on the market, that the Celtics could go out and get instead of going in the Lonnie Walker direction?
Honestly, I don't really know. It would have to be a big man. Maybe a guy of the caliber of maybe a Drew Eubanks, maybe something like that. I don't think, at least with the Celtics cap situation, they really don't have any room to actually add anybody, even if they wanted to. So there's a really good chance that they wouldn't be able to get anybody. But if they did, it would most likely be a big man, and it would probably be a guy similar to what in Lonnie Walker's situation that no other team kind of wants at this point, and maybe the Celtics can turn him into something.
Yeah, I just right now I think the Celtics are pretty well set. I do agree that if the Celtics were to dip their toes in any other position, it probably would be a 5 with Kristaps Porzingis going down until at least Christmas, and then you never know what you're going to get with Al Horford. You see a couple of back-to-backs before Christmas, so Al Horford's definitely sitting on one of those 2 nights. If we're going to go based off the last 2 seasons, so for right now, I do think the Lonnie Walker situation is appropriate for the Celtics, especially if Lonnie Walker is going to take that type of deal. I mean, Lonnie Walker on a minimum deal is unbelievable.
Bang for your buck.
That right there tells me that Lonnie Walker is willing to accept his role on nights of DNPs versus nights where he could potentially be getting 20 minutes a game. He's going to be okay with that inconsistency of minutes, and he'll make the most of any opportunity that comes. But I think the Celtics are pretty dead well set on their big guys right now. Nemajish Keita, I think they're set on. I think they're set on Luke Cornett, as well as Xavier Tillman, who just signed an extension with the Celtics in the beginning of the summer. So I think right now, roster-wise, I think the Celtics are pretty set, and I think Brad Stevens is ready to rock and roll. He loves flexibility on the roster. He loves keeping, he being Brad Stevens, loves keep an open roster spot. We always see it around the trade deadline. We always think maybe he's going to kind of, experiment in the buyout market and attack free agency in the middle of the season. Not really. He likes to leave that last roster spot open for any sort of event in case anything comes by. So I think if Lonnie Walker doesn't make the team, I really think the Celtics just roll into November with an open roster spot.
It'll be interesting to see. And I do know we're going to get into the mailbag, but you guys both brought up the Kristaps Porzingis injury, and it feels only right to go in that direction right now. The Kristaps Porzingis injury, obviously getting surgery, a successful surgery over the summer, right in that beginning of July period. He's back to resuming basketball activities. He is expected to be back sometimes in the December January mark. If you want my best guess, my best prediction would be that Christmas game is the day they let Kristaps kind of come back. I think it's a very fitting, suiting, Kristaps. He likes those big moments with him coming back. It's only right for it to be on Christmas at home against the Philadelphia 76ers. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, with the Kristaps Porzingis injury and obviously the Boston Celtics now trying to go back to back, guys, how concerned should the Boston Celtics be about these potential first 41 games of the season being played without their star big man, Kristaps Porzingis?
They shouldn't be very concerned at all. No. I mean, we saw for most of the season, there were times that Kristaps Porzingis was out for a long period of time, and the Celtics were still perfectly fine. They don't really.
We saw it all playoffs.
Exactly. I'm not saying they don't need Kristaps Porzingis, but in some cases, Porzingis is more of a luxury than he is like an actual need for the Celtics team. And I mean, obviously, you can't expect Al Horford to play the greatest center of all time. You're not really expecting that out of him. But if you can get solid contributions from guys like Horford, you got Cornette, you got Keita. I mean, you could even maybe see a guy like Anton Watson come in and do something, or Xavier Tillman. You never know. So, but with all of the talent the Celtics have, I still think they're going to be fine. And when Kristaps Porzingis does come back, the Celtics will be even better than they already are.
I think it's really going to be important to watch this preseason specifically. Watch those. Keep an eye on the big men. Keep an eye on the rotations. Keep an eye on Luke Cornett. Keep an eye on Xavier Tillman. It was interesting. I was listening to John Corrales, Celtics beat reporter, or journal reporter, earlier, and he was talking about maybe Luke Cornett goes back to being a stretch five, where last year he was rim rolling a lot, right? Playing that high pick and roll. And he's guys, before he came to Boston, he was a sharpshooter. He was a stretch big, playing around the wing, playing around the perimeter. So don't be surprised if he teases that 3-point shot around a little bit. So I definitely think the Celtics have options here. They extended Cada. They extended Tillman. Obviously, same thing with Luke Cornett. So the Celtics have some pretty big trust in their front court right now, whether Porzingis is back or not. So I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on that big man position. I think the Celtics should be more than fine, Rob, to answer your question on a more precise note. I think the Celtics should be more than fine without Kristaps Porzingis for the first half season. Celtics are used to playing without Kristaps Porzingis. I'm not saying it's the easiest thing in the world, because he's that kind of infinity stone that really completes its team for sure. But at the same time, the Celtics have done it on the biggest stage without him. I think that they can get through the first 41 games without him as well. But to go off of Ian's point, you don't know how much you're going to get. And I know Anna Horford doesn't like when we bring up Al Horford's age.
Throw it back to last year when he said he was.
Yeah, Ian said he was back into the grave. Well,
Hey.
but I think it's going to be interesting, because you had that luxury of, Kristaps Porzingis playing the first night of a back-to-back and then Horford playing the second. Right. You're not going to have Porzingis for the first, few months of the season. So Luke Cornett might be getting the start, guys. We might be seeing Luke Cornett get a start. Xavier Tillman getting the start consistently, very consistently, because I don't know if the Celtics are going to slot Horford in at that 5 starting or bring him off the bench. But I think the Celtics are going to be more than fine. If it is, 41 games, Rob, Celtics will be more than fine.
Well, it'll be interesting because last year, this Celtics big man depth was arguably their most consistent in the best depth they had on the roster. And which was surprising for me, because I came into the season, really for all of us, with that kind of being the weak point. You lost Robert Williams in that trade with Kristaps Porzingis. So you kind of thought that depth was gone there, with Kristaps being injury prone and this and that. However, Cornett really stepped up into a big role last year.
Absolutely.
And if there's a guy that I'm looking at as to be the X factor, it's the X man, because, and, I'm not calling Tillman the caliber of player in which Derek White is, right? But if you guys remember correctly, just 2 years ago when we brought in Derek White, that first stint he had in Boston on that finals run was nowhere close to the version of Derek White we got the following year. And I really do believe that Xavier Tillman has an opportunity here, and there's a place for Xavier Tillman to take that step. Obviously, Tillman went through some tough family times, the move, the adjustments. You're living at a hotel. You don't really have your place. You don't have a routine. That stuff matters when you're in the NBA. It really is all routine and comfortable with the scheme. All that is going to be improved with Tillman. So I'm looking at Xavier Tillman to be kind of that fill-in guy and potentially, in my opinion, be that Al Horford replacement, and that backup big man for Kristaps Porzingis. So it will be interesting to see how the Celtics handle business in those first 41 or whatever 30-odd games they have to play without the big man. But I agree with you guys as well. I don't think it affects their chances of winning a championship. I'm not concerned. I still think these guys without Porzingis are the upper echelon of the NBA in that first tier, kind of in a tier of alone. Those top 4 guys are just so tough to beat and to go against. Kristaps is, like Ian said, just kind of really a luxury, the cherry on top of this whole thing. So let's get into the fan mailbag now, because I'm very excited to get to some of these hot takes, to some of these questions. We picked out a couple. obviously sent in on our Instagram story. So if you sent one in, thank you so much. We appreciate that for, allowing us to do this, guys. The first one here, and, it hurts me and it pains me to put this one in here because I feel like it's stirring the pot. But, it's a valuable question, and I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say. Jaylen Brown is more reliable than Jason Tatum.
I don't think that's correct. You can call it stirring the pot all you want, but if Jason Tatum was not the caliber of player that he is, or the fact that he, has improved as much as he has, and I'm not saying Jaylen Brown hasn't, but the way Jason Tatum affects the game is a lot different than the way Jaylen Brown affects the game. And the things that Jason Tatum does when it comes to his facilitating, when it comes to being able to play off ball, when it comes to being able to playing defense, he does it at a pretty high caliber level, and most of it is a lot better than Jaylen Brown. And that's not to discredit Jaylen Brown. He was just the finals MVP. But I do kind of hate that notion that if Jason Tatum isn't shooting well, he's automatically a worse player than Jaylen Brown. I just don't see it. I think Jason Tatum is still the most valuable player for this team.
No doubt.
And I really don't think there's any other way to talk about it.
Awesome. Good. Next question.
Well, it's funny because this is an underrated point. Brown's not more reliable than Tatum. He's more experienced than Tatum. And I think people kind of forget that. Yeah, but still, that 1 year, and you saw that jump though. We saw how important that 1 year jump was from Brown. That 7 to 8 was night and day. I mean, you guys remember how bad he was against Miami Heat in the 2023 Eastern Conference Finals. And he has this offseason, kind of that year 8 when you're entering your prime. It's like, here you go. The 8th year is the big year for you. And look what he came out and did. So, I think it's a little unfair, like Ian said, to Jason Tatum. They both play a critical role. You don't win a ring without either of them, right? You don't take Tatum off this team and they win a ring. You don't take Brown off this team and they win a ring. They just don't. You need the Jays. They are yin and yang. They are, they are that good. But yeah, it's a silly question. I don't know why we're still talking about this. No, he's not more reliable. They are both super, super reliable. So, like Justin said, next question. This one is interesting. This was very interesting, actually. Peyton Pritchard will be the Celtics' next sixth man after Al Horford retires.
Well, Justin, you didn't want to answer the last question, so do you want to go take this one?
I do. I do think Peyton Pritchard. I think Peyton Pritchard has more than enough capability of being the Celtics' next big guy off the bench. He showed it last year at times, and I think Peyton Pritchard is such an interesting player because he is so obsessed with the game of basketball, and it shows each year he's gotten better and better, and each year his opportunity window has gotten wider and wider, right? And there was a point where Peyton Pritchard hung his head down very low. He would talk about it all the time, how he would just like an opportunity. And if that meant he had to be traded out of Boston, okay, so be it. So I think, with what he's been able to do with the opportunities he's had, he's been terrific. And we saw it last year in the finals. Like, he was huge for the Celtics off the bench. He was absolutely huge throughout the playoffs for the Celtics. I do think he has that capability of being the Celtics sixth man when Horford leaves. And I think Brad Stevens believes he could be a big piece for this team for a while as well, obviously signing that extension in the beginning of last season. So I think that is an interesting question. But I see it compared to the guys that are, the guys that are on the team now. I do think that Peyton Pritchard would be that sixth man over a Peyton Pritchard, over an Xavier Tillman, over a, Luke Cornett, 110%.
I think it's interesting though, because I don't know if it's the sixth man after Horford retires and more so the sixth man after Holiday retires. Because I think arguably, you could have put out there that Pritchard was already the sixth man. Yes, Horford was that sixth man in the rotation come playoff time, which I know I just contradicted myself. But over the course of the regular season with, Porzingis being out and, Horford being out, it's Pritchard was kind of your most consistent bench player that you subbed in. So,
yeah.
and unfortunately, it's just with Holiday and White, having your 6-man be another guard, it just gets things, you get really small out there and you lose a lot of size. So, I don't know if he'll be the 6-man once Horford retires. If he's not already the 6-man, I think,
compare it to the roster that the Celtics have now. Take Horford off. Would you?
No, I don't think he is. No, I don't think he is.
Who would be the 6th
spot a big man in there?
Personally,
who do you think it'd be?
I think it would be Hauser.
Yeah.
Just because I personally think, and this is not to discredit Peyton Pritchard at all. He's been absolutely incredible with the fact that he's been able to improve himself and play within a role off the bench. I feel like Sam Hauser he has one thing that Peyton Pritchard doesn't have, and it's size. Sam Hauser can be he's not going to be the greatest defender in the world, but he can still be a serviceable defender at the same size at 6'7", I think he is. What is it, 6'7"?
Yeah,
he's 6'7". He can be a serviceable defender, and he's a 40% 3-point shooter. I feel like that is pretty much the blueprint of what you want as your ideal 6-man. So I would personally say it's Sam Hauser that would be the 6-man for the Celtics, but honestly, I don't really think it matters. I feel like Pritchard and Hauser would be coming off the bench at the same clip no matter what. So I guess it doesn't necessarily matter. But if I had to pick one, I would go with Sam Hauser.
Right. Just for this team, right? I think if you put the two of them on 26 other teams, I think Pritchard's a starting guard caliber player. For a lesser echelon team.
Yeah.
But I do think he's a starting guard caliber player. I don't think Hauser's a starting forward caliber player right now. I think Hauser's role on any team is kind of that same role, is come off the bench and spray. But I think you got a bunch of guys that can get Hauser the ball. He's got size, like Ian said. He's a very serviceable league average defender statistically. I do think Hauser does present that kind of 6-man role. Next one, Peyton Pritchard. I'm sorry, you're the topic of conversation again. Lonnie Walker will be better off the bench next season than Peyton Pritchard. This, I guess, hypothetical Lonnie Walker makes the roster, because I don't want to hear, well, Lonnie Walker's not even on the roster.
I don't know. I mean,
that's the only that's the truth though. He's not even on the roster. I haven't even seen him play. Not even a preseason game.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that question will be better answered after the preseason, I guess.
Right.
But I don't know. Peyton Pritchard's the greatest preseason player of all time, so it's going to be kind of hard to compare
beat him out.
So, if Lonnie Walker makes the team, we can circle back to that question. That's all I got. So,
well, I don't know, because it depends on the matchup. Because if you're playing a larger team, you're likely going to see more Lonnie Walker than Peyton Pritchard. But at the same time, overall, throughout a course of an 82-game season, it's looking like Peyton Pritchard would get the majority minutes coming off the bench, compared to Lonnie Walker. So it is kind of tough. I know that might sound like a cop-out, but it's also that's reality. That's the truth to it. But what I can tell you is if Lonnie Walker does make the team, kind of alluding back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier, I do think he'll be a very valuable piece off this bench. But Peyton Pritchard is going to get the more consistent minutes this season anyway, I think. So that's kind of tough. That's kind of tough to answer. But I would say right now, Peyton Pritchard, let's kind of see what happens in the preseason. Let's see if, how Lonnie Walker fits with the team in the rotation. Because and it also, to the point that you said earlier, Rob, where it's well, now Joe Mazzulla can start to kind of really test things out with these different rotations and these different lineups and not get so criticized for it. So I think that question will probably have to come back to that next time we do a mailbag in next time.
I think
I'm copping out.
Yeah.
I think Lonnie Walker has to beat out Jaden Springer for minutes right now before we talk about Peyton Pritchard. So
no, I know. Listen, but this is what I'll say. You guys know me. I'm super high on Lonnie Walker. But I also do think Lonnie Walker was playing for the Brooklyn Nets, which is a whole different type of basketball when you're playing for a team that's not in the playoffs. Lonnie Walker's best and Peyton Pritchard's best in a vacuum are pretty identical. They're pretty identical caliber player. However, I think Lonnie Walker's medium, what you're going to get out of him on the average night, is I think higher than what you're going to get out of Pritchard on the average night. Like Justin said, due to his size, due to the fact that, his ability to get to the rim and finish is a very underrated aspect of his game. Pritchard doesn't really have that. Now, Pritchard does have his playmaking ability, right? But again, if you're talking about this team, Peyton Pritchard's not here to play make, right? He's really here to be, a pace guy who you knock down big shots and set a pace. So I do think Lonnie Walker can present a better, a better option. But again, you guys are right. He's got to show it first. We could maybe entertain that in game 25 if we've seen something out of him. So. The cop-out answer, I guess, is kind of the right answer for that one. Next one up, Jaylen Brown will be top 10 in MVP voting next year.
Ooh,
it's a hot one. It's a hot take. I don't hate it though.
I don't hate it either.
It's not a hot take, and I'm gonna sound like I'm hating on Jaylen Brown, but I don't think so. You don't normally see 2 top 10 MVP finishers on the same team, but I would love to see it. I'm not saying it's not impossible. I'm just saying that it might not happen, but you never know.
You know what? Jaylen Brown, my brother, I'm going to stick on your side here. I'm going to say yes. I'm absolutely going to say yes. I am. I'm absolutely going to say yes. And we'll come back to this. We'll come back to you laughing at me. We'll come back to
I'm not laughing at you.
No.
We'll
come back. No, you're not just randomly. No, you're not just laughing. No, I wasn't gonna say that. That's the thing. I wasn't gonna. No, you're not.
That's what you're portraying.
I am gonna come back. I am gonna come back at you laughing at me. I am gonna come back at you laughing at me.
And I just said it wouldn't shock me if it happens. I'm just saying it really might not.
Jaylen Brown, I believe in you. Yes, I do believe Jaylen Brown will be in top 10 in MVP finishes.
I also believe that Jaylen Brown.
No, you got your piece. It's Rob's turn to talk now, man. It's Rob.
All right.
I'm not gonna lie. Top 10 is like, I don't think it's like, he might have been top 10 this year. I could be wrong. I know he was top 10 at times. I kind of like, I want to take pieces from what both of you had to say. It's tough. All right. So do I think he'll be top 10? I think he will be, but if he is, I don't think it cracks top 8. I think he's like 9th or 10th.
Top 10. That's the question. Top 10.
Sure. So then, yeah, I do think he's going to finish top 10. However, again, I'm not, and it's so tough to say because he's so good. But I will say it's like, unfortunately, and we'll see how this next season goes with him being the reigning Finals MVP. But when the Celtics are good and when the Celtics are rolling and statistically and who has the ball in their hands more and who's the Tatum is going to get that nod more than Brown will. That's just kind of unfortunately. And again, maybe the tide shifted with the Finals MVP. We kind of all thought that if the Celtics won, it would have just fallen into Tatum's lap, which, I haven't gone to get my piece on that, but it should have gone to Jason Tatum. That's a different conversation for a different day. But it's possible. Yes, I'm going to say yes. Jaylen Brown does finish top 10. I'll show some love to Juice right there. All right, next one up. Last one. Here we go.
To Juice.
In this one,
what's crazy? You were there for Juice's grand opening too, man. That's what's crazy.
I was, like I said, I'm not a hater of Jaylen Brown. I'm just saying,
you dapped up Jaylen Brown.
Anyone knows
man.
Ian, they know he's not a hater.
The switch up is insane.
I am a Jaylen Brown supporter. I've been a Jaylen Brown supporter over most people because I remember not a lot of you guys were very happy about Jaylen Brown's extension when he signed it because a lot of you were like, "Oh, can we trade him for Kevin Durant? Can we trade him for Damian Lillard?" No.
None of us here at Celtics Talk Weekly.
Yeah, I think you might have had some things to say about that.
No, I didn't, because that is so fake.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You were talking about Damian Lillard and Kevin Durant after every podcast.
No, I was not. That's terrible.
Not on the podcast.
That's terrible. And you know why? You know how I know? Because Aaron Nesmith was most likely going in all those trades too. So that's how I remember.
All right, there's a lot of talk about it, and I was shutting it down. So I'm not a Jaylen Brown hater.
Ian is a Jaylen Brown hater confirmed. We'll go on to the next topic here. All right, next one. Here we go. All jokes aside, if you could add, and this one's fun actually, if you could add any player from each position to the roster, who would they be? So we'll start with point guard, and we'll go from there.
Wow.
I said Steph.
You know what? You know what?
All right.
You know what? If I could add a player to this super team, like not replace a player, if I could add a player, because that's what the question was, right? If I could add a player,
Yeah, you don't have to replace anyone.
TJ McConnell at my guard. TJ
You got
McConnell
anyone
at
in
my
the
guard.
league, and you're going TJ McConnell.
Yes, absolute
Okay.
dog. I don't have
Okay.
to replace him off anyone.
Right.
TJ McConnell. I'm trying to win a championship
That's
here.
fair.
I'm trying to get some
All right,
grit.
so you're building more so, and Ian's more saying, "Give me Steph, give me the."
So you
Ian's
definitely
playing.
don't think
Ian's
Lonnie
playing
Walker.
2K. I'm also. I'm the one who picked that question out. It said be semi-realistic, and Steph Curry.
Okay,
added
all right,
to
so
Jason
we'll be
Tatum, Jaylen
semi-realistic
Brown, Drew
here.
Holiday. That was not.
It
even
did
close
not
to
say.
any-
It did not
any-
say semi-realistic in the script.
It-
I'm just
That
letting
falls
you
onto
know.
me. That falls onto
Well,
me.
It did not say semi-realistic in the script. So,
All right, so let's.
Okay, semi-realistic. Get round 2.
What? All right, wait, no,
Round
I got to
two,
give
Ian.
mine.
Christ.
Well,
Oh no,
Ian's not
Ian
giving
can
Steph
Ian
Curry.
can give his
You're not-
semi-realistic one.
Fine, semi-realistic. Give me. See, I don't know if this is realistic in a way, but I like Andrew Nemhard. If we're going,
All right, no, that's super realistic.
I like Andrew Nemhard on this team.
Yeah.
Okay, give me Tyus Jones. I like Tyus. I think he's a good playmaker. I think he's a good scorer on ball. I think he's very good in the pick and roll, which the Celtics thrive off of. I think putting him in with Porzingis and Tatum in that action would be pretty good. So I got Tyus Jones, and then obviously my unrealistic one would be Steph Curry, in case anyone wants to know. So let's go on to shooting guard.
Well, since I have all my unrealistic ones here, I chose Anthony Edwards. But obviously we're not doing that anymore. So shooting guard. I don't know. Maybe Lonzo.
Okay, Lonzo running the 2.
Okay.
Lonzo would be a good fit.
I feel like
Lonzo.
Lonzo would be a good fit on this team. If he's healthy,
Lonzo.
obviously. But
For my 2, give me Aaron Nesmith.
You're just target. You just want the Pacers.
No, Aaron Nesmith. He's my guy.
Okay.
You know he's my guy.
No, that's true.
Come on.
Shooting guard. Shooting guard's tough. I'm gonna slot him in at my 2. I'm gonna go Kelly Oubre, from Philly. I think that there's a role for him on this team. 3-and-D slasher, small forward. Unrealistic would be Anthony Edwards.
Go ahead.
Also,
Go ahead.
I'll go Jaden McDaniels. I like Jaden.
I love
McDaniels.
that was my pick. I love that pick.
That was
Love
also my
Jaden
pick out of
McDaniels.
Minnesota. Yeah.
Yeah, Jaden McDaniels. He would be a perfect fit for the squad. Like ideal.
For sure.
4.
LeBron was my
is that where we're
unrealistic
at?
pick, by the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, screw. Pound sand, Ian. Come on.
Listen, I put together an
Ian was on 2K. Ian was on 2K for 2 hours.
Hey, I was too busy preparing my list because I didn't know this was a realistic equation here. So
Well, I won't lie. When I was writing the script, I was thinking to myself, "Oh, do I go unrealistic or realistic here?" So I also didn't know. So I say we point the finger at Justin.
yeah, it's Justin's fault.
Oh, that's the easy thing to do. Okay. For my 4, in case anybody was wondering, my 4. Honestly, my 4. I'd put Lonnie Walker. That's crazy. So I could reverse the 3 and the 4, McDaniels and Lonnie Walker. We don't have Lonnie Walker technically. He's on a training camp deal. I've always wanted Lonnie Walker. I thought I've always, every time I do a 2K rebuild, every time the trade deadline comes around, every time free agency rolls around, Lonnie Walker's always been one of my targets, and I know he's been one of your targets as well, Rob. I just really like his style of play. 3-and-D type player. He's super athletic. He shoots the piss out of the ball. Just a big Lonnie Walker guy. So yeah, Lonnie Walker, and it's so realistic. He's actually training. He's trying out for the team in a month. So yeah, Lonnie Walker for my 4th guy.
4th guy. I don't know if this guy would necessarily be power forward, but I guess I could play him there. I would say Naz Reid out of Minnesota.
I was thinking Nas.
Dude.
Naz,
Yeah.
I wanted Naz Reid on the Celtics before he was good. So, like, before everybody started hyping him up and he won 6th Man of the Year, I wanted him on the Celtics. It was like the 22 trade deadline because they floated his name out there because of Cat and Gobert, and they didn't know if he was actually going to play. So, but yeah, Naz Reid.
I'm gonna go with the former C. I'm gonna go Kelly Olynyk. I think he's got some shooting, some passing, some some scoring that he can. I think he'd be he'd be a great 4. Come off the bench and
with Pritchard and Hauser too, snipers.
Yeah,
facts.
Yeah, good stretch, good floor. Good
I know this is the most interesting one, the 5, because realistically speaking, the 5 is with Kristaps out, who do you want kind of filling in that 5 slot?
See, what's interesting? Like a few names that come across my mind. I know we're only supposed to pick one. Naz Reid was a really good, solid pick. Another one that's semi-realistic. I really wanted him at the trade deadline. I think it was last year, but he ended up going back to Toronto. Jakob Poeltl. Poeltl was a name.
Yeah.
And then another one, and the poor guy just can't stay healthy anymore. But another guy who I've always really liked, even early days of OKC, Steven Adams. Like I've always really liked Steven Adams. So I know I gave more than one name there, but though any one of those 3 guys for sure, like I'd just absolutely love to add to this team.
I guess I would go Isaiah Hartenstein.
Yeah, solid, very solid.
Think that would be. He was really good on the Knicks last year, and I think he's going to be really good with the Thunder too. So it would be cool to have him on this team.
I would love Kevon Looney. From
okay.
I think athletic. Me, I love the athletic, can rebound, block shots. Really, he reminds me of like a much better prime Tristan Thompson. And I think that would be
Tristan Thompson.
Not Celtics Tristan Thompson. I think that'd be perfect for the squad. So that does conclude the mailbag segment of the podcast. Let's roll into this next segment real quick. I do want to touch base on before we get into Around the Hardwood here. We kind of, expand and talk a little bit more so about the NBA as a whole. So this is going to be super quick, guys. Now I'm going to say these 5 names and you tell me what in one or 2 words, right? What does a successful season look like what does a successful season look like for each of these players? Jason Tatum.
MVP.
I
said all NBA first team for that one. Jaylen Brown.
All NBA second team.
First team.
All NBA first team. I said all NBA second team as well.
Derek White. Yeah.
Oh. What's up? Sorry. You can chime in there.
Are you talking about like what's the ceiling for this guy? Like what's the best, like if he doesn't make a first team, it'd be an unsuccessful season. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you mean?
I mean,
because if that's the case, maybe it is second team. Because I was thinking like, what's like the best case scenario for Jaylen Brown? Like that's what I.
That's fine too. Best case scenario is also fine, but like for me, I think I was doing more so like the bare minimum for me. Would be
then I think
second team.
Okay, all right. What was the next name?
Derek White. Yes.
All defensive first team.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd absolutely agree. First defensive first team. Absolutely.
I said all-star. I think there's a real opportunity for him to get it next year with Kristaps being hurt. I think we'll get 3, and I think it could be Derek White. He's an Olympian now, so I think people are on that wave. Drew Holiday.
A defensive team.
Yeah.
Pretty much anything he did last year.
Yeah. Anything he did. I mean, the guy's going to be 36 years old, and
35.
Good for him. 35 years old. Good for him, man. I think, it really hasn't shown any signs of slowing down. Had a terrific year. Yeah, I'd say defensive team.
I said stay healthy. I think just stay healthy. Holiday, he's one of the. I think you can't replicate what he brings you. So if he stays healthy. I know even if you had a bad regular season, right? You kind of had an up and down, shaky regular season last year, but he showed out for the playoffs. He was our third best player in the playoffs. Stay healthy. If we got Drew Holiday around, I like our chances. Last one, the big man, Kristaps Porzingis.
Be healthy.
Get
for
healthy.
The playoffs.
Get healthy.
That's what I said. I said, be ready for the playoffs.
Yeah.
We can use our same lines that we used to use for Robert Williams for Porzingis now.
Yeah, I know,
right?
It just shifts. All right, so
man,
let's hop into a new segment we got here. We figured it was time that we kind of brought in and talk about the NBA as a whole here on this podcast. So what better way to do that than a written in segment every week called Around the Hardwood. We're going to take a look at some different topics from around the league, talking on the Boston Celtics as well, but more so kind of, giving you guys our grasp at where we think the rest of the league is comparative to the Boston Celtics guys. Now here, this first thing we're going to take a look at is our top 5 NBA teams entering the 2024-2025 NBA season on a list ranked from 5 all the way up until 1. I will start us off here with the 5th best team in the NBA as the Philadelphia 76ers.
I said the Denver Nuggets.
I said 5th best. The Minnesota Timberwolves.
4th best here. I got the Denver Nuggets here. I think anytime you got Jokic, you got a shot.
I have the Knicks. I think they're the only team in the East that can contend with the Celtics.
I also have the New York Knicks.
Number 3, I'm going with the Oklahoma City Thunder.
3, I have the Timberwolves because I think Anthony Edwards can develop. If he can develop a somewhat efficient shooting, I think the Timberwolves will be very dangerous.
I have the Oklahoma City Thunder.
3. All right, number 2, second best team in the league entering next year. I got the New York Knicks. Like Ian said, I think they're the only team that can take Boston to 7 games in the entire league. Forget the East. So I'm going New York at 2.
At number 2, I have the OKC Thunder. I think this is going to be the finals matchup this year. All things considered, I think the Thunder are the best team in the West. And honestly, they're probably the best built team to compete with Boston, in my opinion.
Oh. All right. So I actually read that wrong. My 3 is the Knicks. My 2 is the Thunder. Yeah. So, okay. So 2 is my
2 is Oklahoma.
Yeah,
and then I'm guessing, I'm guessing we all got the same number 1, the Boston Celtics. It's fitting, right? They got to be number 1. For me, it's like, there's no explanation needed. They're the defending champs. They're the best team in the league. They're the champs until they're dethroned. I gave that treatment to Milwaukee. I gave that treatment to Denver. So I don't want to hear any bias because I do believe you are the best team in the league. If you're the reigning champs, and I gave it to Golden State. I gave them Golden State their props as well until someone else knocks you down. So until someone else knocks us out, Celtics get that luxury of being the best team in the league. Rightfully so. So that is our top 5. Now, guys, this is a yearly tradition. We always do this. The way too early award predictions. It's time to do it. We're going to start from 6th man of the year, go to coach of the year, rookie of the year, defensive player of the year, and finish us off with the most valuable player. Last year, I'd have to run back the tape, but I can remember. I think both of you your props. You perfectly nailed the Mark Daigneault pick. Mark Daigneault pick for this year's coach of the year off the Oklahoma City Thunder, Massachusetts native. So I got to give you flowers. Next year, hopefully we can come back onto the podcast and, someone else can get their flowers.
Oh, yeah. So, you guys laughed at me for saying Shai is an MVP candidate last year. I wanted
you win some, you lose some. You win some,
I wanted to
bring
that up, by the way.
I lost that one.
Damn right. I remember when every single one of you guys laugh at me when I have a take. When Justin has a take, everybody laughs at me.
I don't think we laugh at you because, quite frankly,
Justin's right,
that hot of a take.
When Justin's right, he takes a screen record and he saves it forever. Is Shai finished what? 2nd or 3rd in MVP voting last year?
I want to say 2nd.
He finished 2nd.
Second.
I personally don't remember that, but we probably did. You forever take. So
I'm with you on that one. I don't remember it. Sorry. So first off, 6th man of the year. This upcoming year, I got Bobby Portis winning 6th man of the year. I think he's been in contention a lot recently. I think Milwaukee's going to be a pretty good regular season team next year. I think they'll be, in the top 3, and I think they'll do a much better job than they did last year. So I think they will have somebody given an award, and I think Bobby Portis is that man for Sixth Man of the Year.
My Sixth Man of the Year, he should have won it this year. He got robbed. It's Malik Monk of the Sacramento Kings. Yeah. Malik Monk led the entire NBA in bench scoring. He was the best bench player who didn't really start. I don't even think he started any games last year for the Kings.
No,
he was the best bench player. I hate when the Sixth Man of the Year is a player that starts. And I love Naz Reid. Malik Monk should have won it last year. He's going to win it this year.
I think Naz Reid is going to win it again.
Back to back.
I do think Naz Reid is going to win. But I do want to revisit that question later in the season because I remember there was huge controversy, like back when we had Malcolm Brogdon, where it was like because the thing about that was because Brogdon had played every single game off the bench, yet Bobby Portis, and then there was who was that?
It was Emmanuel Quickly.
Was it?
Was it Emmanuel Quickly?
I remember starting a lot of games.
I remember those arguments.
That's not a true
all
six
of those
man.
Arguments were so crazy.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So depending on how healthy the Timberwolves backcourt or the front court can be, I'm gonna go with Naz Reid. Obviously, because of like Karl Anthony Towns or someone gets hurt, Naz Reid's gonna be that starting big guy. But I'm gonna go with Naz Reid.
Coach of the Year. Now I went Chris Finch here. I think Oklahoma City is gonna be the 1 seed. But I don't think you're going to go back to Dagnall. I think like you rarely see a coach just, I think the gap will be too close. I think Minnesota could very easily be that 2 seed out west. And if that is the case, again, you got to think, all right, they got to award somebody on that team. Finch came in second this year, right behind Dagnall. I think Dagnall takes it from him next year. Or I'm sorry, I think Finch takes it from Dagnall.
So I'm not going to lie. I was biased on this one, even though I think it could I think Rick Carlisle might be my pick.
Okay.
That's a very good pick.
Yeah, that's a good
very good.
Just because, although I do want to say Joe Mazzulla, but I don't think the NBA media is actually going to care if the Celtics are good again.
Right.
So
I think it's like, no shit. Right.
I think if the Pacers are a top 3 team in the league this year, Rick Carlisle wins Coach of the Year.
Right.
Because I think Celtics are going to be number 1, and then I think the Knicks will be number 2. But whoever's the 3rd seed, and if it's the Pacers, I think Rick Carlisle can win Coach of the Year, in my opinion.
You guys ready? Yeah. You guys going to have your socks knocked off with this one. Jamal Mosley, Orlando Magic.
I like that one.
Oh, that's a good pick.
I like both of their. I like both
socks blown off in a good way. No laughing involved. I think Jamal Mosley, and I think Jamal Mosley in the Orlando Magic, a similar situation to what we saw out in Oklahoma City. It's just a young coach, a young team. I think the playoff experience that they got, even though they got bounced last year, was extremely crucial to them. I'm very excited for the Orlando Magic. Orlando Magic has been a league pass team favorite of mine for the past few years, and they're just such a fun team to watch. I think the Wagner brothers have it figured out. I think Suggs and Paolo are just terrific, and I'm really excited for the Orlando Magic. So, Coach of the Year, Jamal Mosley.
All right, Rookie of the Year. Now, this one is super interesting because this rookie class was terrible. So I think it's anyone's game. I'm tearing the Band-Aid. I'm going to go Mataz Buzelli from Chicago. I really liked Buzelli coming out of high school. I think if Buzelli went to college, I think he would have been the overwhelming number 1 overall pick. I don't think there would have been any questions. And I think his opportunity in Chicago outmatches, I think, everyone else's. Playing alongside Levine and Kobe White, I think, present a real opportunity for him to get kind of going early. So I'm going to go Mataz for my Rookie of the Year.
So I also had a hard time picking Rookie of the Year, but out of the top 5 picks, there's only one player that went to, I think, a somewhat good team, and that's Reed Shepherd. from the
Reed
Houston
Shepherd, right.
Rockets, and he dominated in summer league. Now, obviously, summer league doesn't mean much, but if he can,
don't tell Justin that.
oh yeah, that's right. Sorry.
You're
anyway,
already on my.
Damn, I pissed him off so much he had to leave. Anyway, but I think Reed Shepherd, I just think he's the best player. I was shocked to watch Reed Shepherd do what he did in summer league, and I mean, obviously it's summer league, but I don't see why he can't do that in the pros this year. Plus, he's on the Rockets, so he's not going to be. He's going to be a role player, and that's fine. But I think if he's a role player who's an efficient offensive player and can play serviceable defense, I don't see why he couldn't be rookie of the year.
Right. Especially in this class. You know, it's another name because Justin, we lost him there. Another name that I kind of like is Dillingham, Rob Dillingham from Minnesota. I think he'll get the starting.
Nice.
I don't know if he'll start over Conley, but he could play that seventh man role, and I think if they win some games, and I think he could score a good amount of points. So
yeah, and
go,
I guess
that'd be my next one.
Yeah, my only other one I was thinking of was Ricochet on the Hawks, but
I don't know much.
I do think I don't know much about him, but I do think anything that Atlanta touches immediately turns to shit outside of Trae Young. So
yeah, no. All right, next one up. Sorry, the connection just went all whack on you guys. Next one up, defensive player of the year. This one, it has like, I picked this, and I'm gonna stick with
Justin's
it.
back.
Justin, I had a few cuss words going your way, so good thing the internet went out.
What's your rookie of the year?
Yeah, rookie of the year.
Rob Dillingham.
Oh, look at me. We did one more and one extra name, and I selected Rob Dillingham. Look at that.
What?
Because you left, I said, okay, another name I like because Justin left to throw out 3 is Rob Dillingham.
Yeah, no, that's my pick.
Oh, that's a great pick.
Rob Dillingham.
All right, so now we're on a defensive player of the year. Now, elephant in the room. Yes, I get it. It's probably going to be Wembanyama. However, I steered away from that direction because I think Jaden McDaniels could realistically win it. I think Minnesota is the second best defensive team in the league, arguably first with the Boston Celtics. And I think Jaden McDaniels is their best defender. I'm going Jaden McDaniels.
Yeah, I'm going Wemby. I don't think anybody. It's gonna be Wemby. I don't care. It's gonna be Wemby no matter what, unless he gets injured and doesn't play a whole season. If it's not him, I would hope it's Bam Adebayo, just because
that's a great Bam.
I think
flowers.
I chose Bam last year, and like it just kind of feels like he's like always there, but because of Rudy Gobert, he's never mentioned. I would go Bam Adebayo if it wasn't Wemby, but I think it's gonna be Wemby.
Derek White for my defensive player of the year. I think not even a smirk, just a full blown
I love
laugh,
Derek
dude.
White.
Like, what is your problem? I think Derek White. I think the obvious pick is Wembanyama, but like, how original? Like, I'm going Derek White. I'm going Derek White.
I mean, we'll see. I don't think there's a realistic. All right, but all right, next one. Most valuable player. Now I say that because I've done it for 4 straight years.
Pick a guard
or 3. No, and I'm gonna do it again. My MVP pick for next year is Jason Tatum.
Yeah. Well.
Now, and let me say this. The one thing holding Tatum back from winning the MVP, because if you ask me, that 2023 year, he could have done it. And 2022, if he didn't have that first half of the bad year with the Celtics, he would have won it then too. Last year, he didn't really deserve it. But the one thing that every media member was holding over him, you don't have a ring. You don't have a ring, which is, again, stupid for the fact, like, no MVP has ever had that, that weight on his shoulder that he had to win a ring before he wins an MVP. Jason Tatum is entering year 8. that is officially his prime year, right? You saw the jump Brown took. You're going to see that same jump with Tatum. I think with Porzingis out of the lineup for the first 40 games, the ball is going to be in Tatum's hands. He's going to be able to kind of get back to that flow state of scoring you saw from him in 2023 that you didn't really see from him last year. I think defensively and his playmaking has gone through the roof. I think he could easily average right around like 28 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 assists, 7 assists. And if the Celtics are the number 1 seed again, and he is the best player, I think it's going to fall to Jason Tatum's lap. I think the league can finally give him his respect. I'm going Jason Tatum for the 3rd straight year, and I'm saying it with my chest.
I'm not going to say it as loud as you, but I chose Jason Tatum. I think if there's any year that he's going to do it, it's going to be this year. I think the voter fatigue on Jokic is going to set in eventually. I don't think people believe in Joel Embiid as much as he would probably like. I don't think they want to give him another MVP. I don't think they want to give – I mean, they might give it to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I think he would be a good pick. Luka Doncic is also a good pick.
Is he?
If it's anybody's year, if it's any time he's going to win it, it's probably this year for Jason Tatum. But – if I'm not picking him, I would probably go. I'd probably go Luka because I feel like they also want to start hyping him up soon. So, but
Soon?
you never know. Well, obviously, they got to do something to steer away the conversation from the finals. So.
Right.
I think I'm gonna go with Jason Tatum. I'm gonna go with Jason Tatum. I think they're absolutely. I think this is, and I personally haven't said this every year, but like I definitely think this is the year Jason Tatum gets his respect. I will say, every year it feels as if the MVP race comes down to like Jokic, Giannis, and Embiid for the past few years. If you want, I know Tatum is my prediction to win the MVP, but who's going to be in the race, the top 3 in the end? Jason Tatum, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Anthony Edwards is my 3.
No, I like Luka there instead of Ant.
Justin is talking right now, and Justin likes Anthony Edwards. So good thing I didn't ask you your top 3 yet. so
fair point.
What the hell is going on here?
Oh, that's too.
Oh my god! I think I do think Shai sneaks into that top 3 again. I shouldn't say sneak in because he had a terrific year last year, and I saw that coming. I just really enjoy watching Shai play, and I think this year he's definitely back in that conversation. But it's funny. I don't think I've picked Jason Tatum to win MVP in the past couple shows that we predicted MVP. I don't think I have, but this year I absolutely am picking Jason Tatum for MVP for sure.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, the Anthony Edwards pick is not bad. It's just it feels like he has to do a lot. Like he has to improve a lot if he really was going to be in that conversation legitimately. Because, like, I mean, you could argue. I think you could argue he's a top 10 player. He's kind of in that position Tatum was a couple years ago, where it was like we were all hyping Jason Tatum up to potentially be an MVP. And like, even if we said like, oh, this is going to be the year he finally does it, this is going to be the year he finally does it. But like people were still arguing if he's a top 10 player or not. Like that's kind of the position Anthony Edwards is in. And he's only 22 years old. So he obviously has the time to do it. But
if Anthony Edwards is in the final 3, it is a total just media driven. They've picked their next face of the league. They want Edwards in that conversation because again, he's 22. You have Jason Tatum, you have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you have Luka Doncic, you have Giannis Antetokounmpo, you have Nikola Jokic, 5 players who are all in their primes, right? Like the undisputed 5, Joel Embiid too, but I don't really take Embiid serious. No. The 5, I know, again, another conversation for another day. The 5 like big name right now winning superstars, right? Who have all except Shai, he hasn't done it yet, but again, I think he's taking that step.
Definitely on his way.
4 others have proven that they can get to the finals. Luka obviously waiting to get that ring. His time will come. He'll eventually get one, I believe. But I don't see room for Anthony Edwards to squeeze in. If Jason Tatum can't squeeze into the top 5 when he was 22 and doing what he was doing, and I'll tell you what, it was a lot more impressive than what Anthony Edwards was doing. then I don't think Anthony Edwards should be there quite yet. Now, with that being said, 4 years from now, to think he's Jason Tatum's age in 4 years, that's a scary thought. So I will give Anthony Edwards his flowers there.
Who's your top three? So we all have Tatum finishing. Who's your top three in MVP?
I think you got Luka second. And then I think third. I don't think Shai can replicate what he did again last year, this year. I think his numbers will take a step back. Doesn't mean he's not going to be as good, but I think with Chet entering year 2, Jalen entering year 3, or Chet really entering year 3, but again, the first year. I think that, you see some more progression out of OKC. So I think you're going to see those numbers dip a little bit. I think they'll be a better team. Shai's recognition will go down. So I'm going Tatum, Luka, that last spot, Jokic and Giannis are always going to be there. So probably Giannis or Jokic, one of those two I got. I don't know about you, Ian.
Yeah, I'd probably say Tatum, Luka is my top 2. And I guess I'd probably go Shea 3. I think obviously you're always going to have Giannis and Jokic and Embiid in there. I mean, low-key, something I thought of that it's probably not going to happen, but there might be a chance it does. What if Steph Curry just becomes like another random MVP candidate? Do you remember in 2020?
Oh, man.
Well, no, you remember in the 2020-21 year where his team was ass, and it was literally just him having the solo squad. No,
so I do, yeah.
I mean, I know Steph is
possible,
30s now, but low key, I mean, it could happen.
You know what? Since we're in around the hardwood and we're talking about around the association and Steph Curry, it's going to be interesting because Klay Thompson was traded this offseason, a sign and trade. So this would be the first year where we see Steph Curry without Klay Thompson playing alongside Klay Thompson. So obviously, Klay Thompson has been injured, and there have been times where Curry's played without him. But throughout the course of an 82-game season plus potential playoff run, I definitely wonder what the game will look like of Steph Curry. I wonder what it's going to look like.
Yeah, it could look a lot different. And I know we didn't talk about it, but most improved category, you could see Jonathan Kuminga from Golden State kind of enter that tier because like Justin said, no Klay, Draymond kind of fizzling out. So a lot of those young guys are going to get some chance to play. I think that Warriors team could be complete garbage. But again, when you have Steph Curry, you never know, like Ian said. I mean, you really don't. That 2022 year, that was not a great, was not a great team. But when Curry gets going, he is tough to stop. So that will be interesting to see. All right, last segment here. I'm sorry?
Who got most improved?
This year?
Last year?
Yeah.
What's
I don't even remember.
It was Tyrese Maxey.
Oh, well, clearly he didn't improve that much to me.
Well, everybody. Well, the problem with the most improved player is that everyone's thinking it's just going to be Wemby, which I think is stupid because
it shouldn't be.
He was the first overall pick.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
it shouldn't be the natural progression. And you know who got robbed this year? Kobe White. Kobe White
for sure.
Kobe White was unbelievable. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No,
this is the same year. This is like, I'm saying, like, it's like when Ja Morant won it and Desmond Bane should have 100% won it.
Yeah,
but
it shouldn't be a high pick all-star caliber player that's just developing. It should be a player that's like in year 4, he's kind of had a rough start and then takes that big leap to like, oh, I'm an all-star, high starter tier caliber player. But what are you gonna do? All right, so let's get into the last segment here before we wrap up. This one is what NBA team took the biggest jump and the biggest step back this offseason? First, we'll start with the biggest jump. I'm going to go with the Philadelphia 76ers. I think there's a big asterisk next to these guys. If they're healthy, I think regular season, they could make some real noise. Maxey, Paul George, and Embiid. I mean, that's a pretty tough offensive squad to take down. I think they took the biggest jump. I think bringing in Paul George and getting rid of Tobias Harris is big time.
Biggest jump, in my opinion, was the OKC Thunder. Bringing in Alex Caruso for Josh Giddey is one of the best moves I think they've ever made, even though they have a million draft picks and they didn't have to trade one of them to get rid of Josh Giddey. And you got Alex Caruso, who arguably could be the best, like, coming off the bench guard that you could get in the NBA. So that was good. And they signed Isaiah Hartenstein, who is also a perfect fit for them because they needed the big men depth outside of Chet Holmgren. So they got that. And like you mentioned earlier, Chet Holmgren's going to improve next season. This is going to be technically year 2, but it's technically also year 3. Jalen Williams is really good. Shea is obviously incredible, and then you got the rest of their team. Like, you got Lou Dort, who's also really good for them. And there's just a lot to like about the OKC Thunder, and they're going to be one of the best teams in the league at the end of the year.
I am absolutely with you, Ian, and that's exactly who I had, the Oklahoma City Thunder. I mean, talk about adding without subtracting, right? Like, we talk about it all the time, especially like when we get around the trade deadline and there's not many moves to make, but at the same time, it's like, if you're going to make a move, make sure it's addition and make sure you're not really subtracting much out of it. And I think you were not getting anything from Josh Giddey last year. I mean, Josh Giddey just did not have a great year. I know he was going through a lot of personal things and a lot of things off the court. He just did not have a good year. He just didn't really fit the system. Obviously, they dished out Pokusevski last year for Gordon Hayward. Pokusevski just really didn't fit the system at all either. Then Gordon Hayward came in come playoff time. His production went so down, he actually retired. So, and then you mentioned this earlier, Ian, that Isaiah Hartenstein edition is so huge. And I'm just, it's really good to see the Oklahoma City Thunder each year. Like, they just, I talk about these guys all the time. I should do my own show on the Thunder because I talk about them so much. It's just, they just did rebuilding so right. And I'm just so happy for them. And then on top of that, similar to my point on the Orlando Magic last year, it's like this Thunder team now adds some playoff experience to them, right? And then you get Lou Dort another year, you get Jalen Williams another year. You also get Shai coming off of a MVP run last year. So I'm definitely excited for the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think that's definitely the team that I guess made the most noise this offseason.
The team that took the biggest step back, I'm going to say the Cleveland Cavaliers. They were a top 5 seed in the East last year. They made virtually no moves in the entire Eastern Conference, got a lot better. I think they fall into a play-in team next year.
I'm going to say the Denver Nuggets. Ever since they won the championship, it felt like they just were like, okay, cool, we're done now. They got rid. I mean, they lost Bruce Brown last year. They lost KCP this year. They brought in Russell Westbrook, who, I'm not going to disrespect Russell Westbrook, but I don't think he's going to be a very huge contributor on this Nuggets team, and he's not going to replace the production that Kentavious Caldwell-Pope had. And honestly, it's really weird. They're like one injury away from a guy like Jokic or Michael Porter Jr. or Jamal Murray. They're one injury away from completely falling apart.
Yep.
And like, I still have them as a top 5 team in the league, but that's pretty much just because of Jokic. Yep. And I mean, obviously this isn't, a huge thing, but you saw Jamal Murray in the Olympics without Nikola Jokic, and he did not look very great. And obviously it's the Olympics, it doesn't really count. But what happens if Jokic is gone? Is Jamal Murray going to average like 30 a game when he gets the opportunity? I just don't think so. I was high on the Nuggets last year, and then they blew a 20-point lead in the playoffs. And I don't know. I feel like the loss of KCP is just going to be too much.
I'm going to stick with you, Rob. And I wasn't really a big fan of the Cavaliers last year. They never really sparked any interest of mine. I think it's a messy situation in Cleveland. It feels like it's a little weird with Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. I just feel like, everybody's so focused on Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and that duo not coexisting. I just don't see a world where this duo coexists in Cleveland, Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. If you were to ask me, I was betting money on Donovan Mitchell being in New York this offseason. I really was, or at least being elsewhere, not returning to the Cleveland Cavaliers. I don't see them how they improved. I think they dished a bag to Max Strus. And Max Strus just didn't do anything for them last year. Evan Mobley and Jared Allen are actually one of my favorite front courts, but neither of them can stay healthy for the life of them. Niang can't. I mean, what is that? I don't know. I don't know what's going on in Cleveland right now. I will say, I am a Kenny Atkinson fan. I thought he was absolutely screwed out of a job in Brooklyn just a few years ago. They fired him and then brought Steve Nash in, which is mind-boggling because Kevin Durant nor Kyrie Irving at the time wanted Steve Nash as a coach anyway. But I am excited for Kenny Atkinson getting a head coaching job. I do think that was a win, but I think overall they just stepped back. Like, I don't see Cleveland making any noise. They barely squeaked out of the Orlando Magic round. And to me, that's pretty successful for the Orlando Magic because it's like this team has no playoff experience, and they go in there and they almost beat the Cavaliers in 7 games. They were up 20 in that game 7 and they just collapsed. But this Cleveland team is not a threat whatsoever, which is shocking because when we do our early standings predictions, like they've been a top 4 team of mine for the last like 2 or 3 years. Now
they got a lot of talent, but they
do have a lot of talent, but 110% right there. It's just not well constructed. And that's not going to win you championships. It's like you look at those Brooklyn Nets teams on paper. It's like, oh my gosh, like these are incredible teams, but on the court, it just never worked out. Right. Whether it was health or whether it was just certain people needed the ball in their hands more, it just never worked out. But I think, Cleveland Cavaliers 110%. I could see them falling down into the play-in tournament this year.
Absolutely. Well, guys, I just want to say welcome back and thank you so much for watching or listening, whatever you are doing. If you're on YouTube or Spotify, we appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to listen to us 3 jokers talk about some basketball. But again, guys, like I said, podcasts are back for good this season. Every Wednesday at noon, we'll have a new podcast dropping. We have some good big plans. We're hoping to get some nice guests on the show. Again, so guys, thank you so much. If you're not already following us on social medias, go do that. Rob, my man Ian, and Justin over to the right of me. Guys, and until next time, you know the deal. Go Seas.